Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the hour of 9:45 having arrived, I'd like to call the Tuesday, August 13th, 2013 Kane County Board meeting to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Allen. Auger. Here. Guerrero.
Here.
Castro.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Donahue.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Froz.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Heyman.
Here.
Holscheid.
Here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Ozarek.
Here.
Lash. Lewis.
Here.
Molina. Bullock. Excuse me, Mr. Pollack. Sheffro.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Starrett. Taylor.
Here.
Vasquez.
Here.
Winicki.
Yes. Here.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum. We'll go ahead and a special treat. Nancy George from Wessel and Sherman has brought her granddaughter, Elizabeth Turley, who's 9 years old, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to ask Elizabeth and Nancy George to come forward. And if I'm not mistaken, Dick Wessels either has joined us or will join us shortly. So Nancy and Elizabeth, would you come forward and lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Elizabeth, Nancy, and Dick. Thank you very much for coming today. I'd like to ask Reverend Teresa Stremlaw with His Precious Name Ministries to come forward to lead us in prayer. And if you'd please rise.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Father. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning with grateful hearts and open minds with great expectations. Thank that you will lead this board and everyone present to conduct us in a manner that is pleasing and acceptable to you. Our nation is in great need, physically, morally, and spiritually. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, you tell us, if your people, your God-defined people, respond by humbling themselves, praying, seeking your presence, and turning their backs on their wicked lives, you will be ready for us. You will listen from heaven, forgive our sins, and restore our land to health. Lord, we ask that you heal our land. We ask that your wisdom, discernment, knowledge, and understanding would manifest in and through us to accomplish your purpose and establish plans far greater than we could ever imagine. Again, in Matthew 6:33, you tell us that if we seek your kingdom and your righteousness, you will supply all our needs. I pray that you will bless each and every one here today, physically, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. Strengthen and encourage us to do the jobs you have called us to do. And most of all, I pray that we all enter into a greater personal relationship with you. Please bless our land. In Jesus' precious name I pray.
Amen. Thank you very much, Reverend Stremlaw. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 9th, 2013. May I have a motion? Let's see. Mr. Vasquez, second by Ms. Starrett. Any discussion, additions, subtractions? Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Chairman, just wanted to clarify one of the lines in the minutes talking about the Anderson Road, and in the discussion it says that Lewis stated he wanted the minutes to reflect that this is a vote today, that this resolution is not a vote to turn jurisdiction back to City of Elbert. I just wanted to clarify that the idea was that this is a vote today. This vote today is not, and delete the word is a and that this resolution. So,
Mr. Chairman,
just wanted to correct the minutes.
I'll move it as amended.
Because it's the minutes, the way the language was, pardon me? Right, just the language of the minutes, because the language of the minutes says one thing and it says another thing, and I mean, it was pretty clear, the discussion. So I just wanted to have the minutes be clear what the discussion was.
Good. And thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. You've made the motion. It's seconded by Mr. Vasquez. And we naturally, I would think that we want to go back, take a look. It sounds fine, but we should listen to the recording of the meeting, and I'm assuming that that's an accurate, proper statement of what your desire was. Any further discussion on the motion and second? If not, we have the motion second on amending the minutes according to the language that Mr. Lewis has suggested. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Are there any other amendments? If not, then I would like to ask, let's see, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the July 9th meeting, say aye. 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 Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now we have several presentations this morning. I'd like to ask Mr. Kozarek to lead us through recognition of Kane County as a cool county by the Sierra Club. We have Sandy Captain and Lonnie Morris from the Sierra Club. And so if the presenters will come forward and present the certificate, Mr. Kozarek, how about if you and I take care of that for the board?
Sure.
Good morning. My name is Lonnie Morris, and I'm with the Sierra Club, and it is my pleasure today to present this recognition to Chairman Lawson and Commissioner Kozarek and the full county board for signing on as a cool county. We are really pleased to have Kane County join us. You bring so many assets. You bring the support of the county board. You bring an energy assessment. You bring a plan, and you bring staff that are already working on sustainability initiatives. The Cool Counties and Cool Cities Network is looking for the sustainability solutions that will create resilient communities, and we are so proud that Kane County is part of that effort. This is for you.
Just a word or two, because I am relatively a new attendee of the Energy and Environment Subcommittee meetings, and from the first time that I came, I was very, very, very impressed. I thought, wow, I hope we're doing as much back in Elgin as you all are talking about doing here. Sierra Club and its 2.1 million voting members applauds the bipartisan efforts to lower fossil fuel waste and use and to increase energy efficiency and provide leadership across our cool cities of Elgin and Aurora and in between to reduce climate disruption. Wasting resources and energy is morally wrong and costs money too. So as Chris Lawson and others have said, this is a win-win for the taxpayers and for everyone. Thank you so much for all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Captain.
Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize Mr. Kozarek.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this is a great example of a program that was brought to me by a constituent, Ms. Sandy Captain, and we did bring it through committee. It is an example of a program that was originally, it's conducted through the Sierra Club, which is an environmental cause Political Action Committee. However, it was also supported by a lot of the local businesses that we discussed. We did have one constituent who brought this forward. He had some opposition. We worked with him and we made him understand exactly what this was, that it wasn't detrimental to the business community, that it's just our efforts to move forward and be a more sustainable, high-efficiency county. So I was very proud of the program. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much, Mr. Kozarek, and all the members of the Energy Environment Committee and all the members of the board who supported. If I'm not mistaken, that was a unanimous vote, so thank you very much. Okay, next presentation is going to be the International Crown 2016 LPGA Tournament. We have a video, very short video that we'd like to show you today. Would you like to be recognized to say a few words, Ms. Taylor?
This is an international event that's coming to Kane County. And we are truly blessed that this is happening, and it's coming in 2016. This is the same organization and the same course that was the host of the LPGA Solheim Cup that happened in 2009. No, it's just coming, the LPGA Solheim Cup is just coming back to the United States actually this weekend in Parker, Colorado. So the magnitude, it's an international event, and we are pleased to have with us Keith Rich, who is part of Rich Harvest Farms. The course is him and his dad, and they created this event. And on your spots, you will see a folder that will explain it to you a little bit more. Anyone that has any questions after, of course, can come over to me. Also, Mr. Rich was kind enough to bring baseball caps. International Crown, here we go, International Crown. Just call me Carol Merrill here. Baseball caps. I also have balls that are representing the tournament, and I also have nice coins also. So if you'd like to get those from me after that.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I'd also like to thank Mr. Rich for coming, and Samantha, thank you very much for coming. As if I'm not mistaken, you take care of public relations, some of the work on Mr. Rich's staff. It is a fantastic initiative that attracts growth and excitement and material wealth to this whole region, to this area. If you think about what actually probably 2 generations ago, the Butler family did in Oak Brook with polo, and then the development of the Oak Brook Shopping Center, and you think about the potential of that enormous growth here in Kane County around golf and around the investment that the Rich family has made to this area, and all you had to do is go out. Frankly, I'm not a golfer, but I went to see that Solheim Cup, and it was incredible. And I think that with the video that comes up, that you see some of the excitement of the competition and the work that Rich Harvest Farm also does with youth, the youth program. It's outstanding. So at the point that we get this part organized through the Jobs Committee of Kane County Sparklers, I would like this work being done by your family to be recognized as one of the Kane County Sparklers. So with that, Roger, would you help us with the...
Personal pride, for world rankings, for individual trophies. In July 2014, they'll play for something more. They'll play for their teammates. They'll play for their country. Introducing the International Crown. Only 8 countries, only 4 players per country. No coach, no captain, no excuses. female golfers on the planet will combine their Rolex World Rankings to create a country score. Want to play? Better send your best. But this is not just player versus player. It's country versus country in the ultimate world team golf pressure cooker to produce for your homeland. Baltimore's historic Caves Valley will host the inaugural Crown in 2014. From there, the best in the world will journey to Chicago's Rich Harvest Farms in 2016. Every 2 years, global golf fans can finally answer one simple question.
So who is the best golfing country? Who is the best golfing country in the world? It's time to find out.
32 players, 8 countries, 4 days, 1 crown.
You know, I attended a meeting the other day, and I'd like to ask Mr. Rich if he'd like to say a few words. I attended this meeting and saw the potential of what there was a very famous golfer many years ago who did for the Masters in the PGA in Augusta, Georgia, what you very well could do with the support of, you know, the whole region, you could do for women's golf in this region in Sugar Grove. So, Mr. Rich.
No, that's correct, and we're quite proud to call Kane County our home for sure, and we got a tremendous opportunity with the International Crown. And the one thing that I wanted to mention is that why this is such a big deal is because it's country versus country. And 60% of the top 100 players on the LPGA circuit are from Asia. So they've never been able to play in the Solheim Cup, or if you even look at it as a Ryder Cup format for the men. So it makes it a true country versus country, and then it goes into the Olympics. The Olympics in 2016 will be hosting the first time golf as a sport. So if you look at all that's happening with golf, it's going to become a true international sport. Also, with the impact that we had with the Solheim Cup, in just a couple minutes here, we were, you know, it was the largest LPGA tournament they have ever had as far as spectators and as far as revenues. We had 120,000 spectators at the Solheim Cup. A typical U.S. Open on the LPGA circuit probably gets between 60 and 70,000. And that was one of the reasons, just so that Caves Valley is going to be hosting the 2014, the inaugural event, is because it took us 4 years to really work it, starting in '05. And we just didn't feel we just had enough time to actually put this tournament together in its entirety because of all the things that I know the family does as far as growing the game, amateur golf, as Chris Lawson just said, Bobby Jones, he's all about amateur golf, and that's where it all started. And there's no reason why this county can't have an Augusta here and have that prestige tournament here every other year for a long, long time. That's the goal, and starting in 16, and we're going to make that happen. Other than that, we're going off to Solheim here to play this week. It's in Denver. Make sure you turn on your TV this weekend, and it's on the Golf Channel and NBC. There's probably going to be about 30 hours of airtime for the Solheim Cup, so we're quite proud to be a part of that and working with the Solheim family as well. So, any questions?
Ms. Gillum?
When do tickets go on sale?
Well, probably within the next, it'll be about a year and a half or so, 2 years, to be honest with you. So.
And I would like to thank all the board members who have been involved in promoting past events and future events, and then also the members of our staff who are starting to mobilize to make sure that we support the effort based on your family's initiative.
Yeah. So. Well, it's something that we can all be proud of, and like I said, we want to keep it here and to have it every other year. So this, just another note, the Solheim Cup will be like in 13, and then the International Crown will be on the even years. So quite excited.
Good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Chairman Short program, and this month I'd like to present just some brief thoughts, 4 or 5 minutes, if I can do this quickly enough, on Kane County Connected. So I'm going to pass out some information to all the board members. So if you'll pass those around. Okay. And can you hear me all right? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Thank you, Roger. You know, we have twin pillars of the property tax levy freeze that emphasizes our devotion to value, creating value, and for our taxpayers, and then also jobs. But along with those twin factors, I think it's very important that we have an excitement factor. Remember the analogy from the last presentation on Kane County Connected on the community outreach that had to do with the electromagnet analogy, where you send a surge of energy through a coil of wires, and it becomes a magnet that retains and attracts new growth, prosperity, wealth to what surrounds that magnet. So we want that attraction to Kane County. Kane County Connected, the people who you have supported to bring on board the first 10 constituencies, those are on this card. On the back, they include veterans, employers, gardeners, global ambassadors, youth, veterans, 10 different groups. During this first 6-month assignment for the 2 people who've been brought on, I think that we need to do 2 things, and I believe that the board has emphasized that we want to make sure in those 6 months that we've defined the program. Define it, job description, basically. Number 2, we want to make sure that we demonstrate like a prototypical network. I mean, can we build a network? Can we demonstrate a network can be built? Now, I would ask, I mean, we have around this room political leaders who have been very successful in getting here to represent their constituents, their neighbors. I would ask if there are any people who have 1,000 people on their Facebook. 1,000 people as a number being a large number for a beginning effort. Do we have anybody with 1,000? Okay. I mean, yeah, good job. I just asked.
Mr. Chairman, Tiara wants to know what Facebook is.
I understand. We'll have a tutorial a little later. First of all, and I do think that words are important. And one of the things that I've found with working with the 2 people who are helping us move this forward is an appreciation of words, and then once you select words that mean something, then you stick with them and grow from there. But the initial definition of the program as a whole is Kane County Connected is an initiative that builds community networks using social media. These communities connect people through common interests and activities that highlight the county as a premier place to live, work, and invest. Next slide, please. Here are some of the definitions of potential. In Cheryl's area, there are 2 people who have come on board to help us, Cheryl Marafio and Nick Scanlon. I think that this is also an appropriate symbol, the honeycomb, because it's, you know, the honeycomb stands for the bee. That's one of the busiest creatures in nature. Just to give a couple illustrations, veterans, who I believe are first among equals, to connect them to needed services, to disseminate information, and provide discussion forums. One of the big things that's going to help in this area eventually will be jobs, getting people replaced into the economy. Employers, helping to expand employment opportunities and attract business to Kane County. Each one having their purpose. The moms and dads developing a network that helps parents raise strong and successful families. Interesting, Mark Armstrong gives these great tax workshops. He does them downstairs. I think that there's either one tonight or tomorrow night, and answers every question. He will stay until there are no more questions to ask. The other night, I distributed, on behalf of the board, the cards, and under taxpayers, the idea that, well, where do people have a voice, a direct voice? They don't have to hire a lobbyist to have a direct voice into fiscal policies and tax policies of the county. So it gives people the thread that runs through the fabric of the entire county. Next slide, please, Roger. In Nick's area, Nick Scanlon's area, there are just two that I'd like to highlight. One is the gardeners, where there was a lady who called in, and she wanted to know if they could use the parking lot over at the Randall Road, the traffic court over by the circuit clerk's office. And certainly, I used to take care of this lady's accounting when she was in business for herself, and I knew that she is a really leader with a lot of initiative. And I asked her if she'd be interested in helping put together this program. Nick went out to meet with her, and in the end, one of the things that Kane County Connected does is deliver audiences to functions. So they're going to have a mum sale out at the parking lot in front of the Kane County facility, and there's nothing more disappointing than to do a lot of work on a project and then have nobody show up. So this is a way of coordinating all of our efforts, having one rallying point in the county where we can do some things. The youth, a junior board for Kane County, and for all of these different areas, for the 10 constituencies, I do hope that members of the board will come forward wherever your special interest is and help mentor those constituencies. The work that Cheryl and Nick are doing, mentor that where you have a special interest of what you'd like to do. So let's see. Some of the things that are represented, by the way, you've invested so far, maybe we've been going for, has it been about maybe 6 weeks? Nick and Cheryl, where's Cheryl? Cheryl, is it about 6 weeks, 8 weeks? How long? Okay, so it's been 8 weeks so far. So you've invested, let's see, that would be about, I guess that'd be about $10,000. And here is just in, let's see, if you could go back to the previous slide, under the moms and dads, thank you, Jack. It's the president calling. Cheryl went out to meet with the Glen Bard School District 87. They have a parent series where they invested $150,000 to put together a program that helps parents, raise their families. There are a number of folks who have just led the way for so many of us, and we follow emulate their example. You've taken that initial investment of having someone to rally around, and we've brought it into Kane County where these folks say, we've invested in it, but we'd like you to use it, and you can use it for free. So it's wonderful. The Heinz Veterans Association, or Veterans Administration Mobile Medical Unit, Cheryl has been working in the, where is it? The veterans. See, there really is something for every constituency, beginning with the first 10, of almost everything that we do in the county, and it unites our efforts. But the mobile medical unit, along with Jake Zimmerman, bringing it to Hampshire, TR, with your work serving the veterans in your area, to Aurora and also Elgin. Yesterday, we had the first international delegation came from we had the Consul General, or the Director, we had the head person for 7 states in the Midwest from Taiwan, came along with his Economic Development Director, Education Director, and his assistant, and shared with us a number of things that we can do together. Now, the base of that, this is under the Global Ambassadors, is that because we have such diversity in Kane County, for instance, as we're talking, there's a lady who is a teacher at IMSA, Illinois Math and Science Academy, who's from Taiwan. They were familiar with her. She becomes a natural leader. We group together these folks and reach out to make sure that Kane County is connected to the rest of the world. We've already talked about delivering audiences to event. If you could go to the next slide, Roger. Whether it's bicycle races under the athletes, there are different ways of promoting physical fitness or running races. Under the youth program, enlisting an army of young people through a junior board, emulating your good example. Their jobs will be to teach themselves self-government through the process that you exercise each month and during the month. And then spend a budget. We've already identified a person who's going to contribute non-taxpayer money into that. It's going to be between $2,500 and $5,000. And then they'll be able to invest that money the best way they can through the deliberation to promote living, working, and investing in Kane County. So, and then finally, the gardening club. Very interesting that what they're going to do is they want to work with the people who are working on that Grow for Kane. You know, that we have the program within the county to make sure that we eat healthy through the work that the health committee is doing and the health department is doing. And now we have all these volunteers in the gardening club, so it brings us together. So with that, the next slide, this is basically the breakdown of, people come into the website. We have the options of Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. They're going to be in there's the 10 areas, and we can go from there. What's very important about the program is it's not just, first of all, you probably notice that it's not about talking about, this is what the county's doing for you. I hesitate to call, propaganda, but this isn't about what we're doing. It's about what our constituents are doing along in just these first 10 areas. So the Facebook allows it to be a two-way street of communication. It's not just people come and view, it's people come and participate. Okay, and I'd like to just do a quick introduction of the 2 people who you have on board your staff. First of all, Cheryl Marafio. Her background breaks into 4 main areas of program development, management, supervision, public relations and training, and then community involvement. You have in front of you the details, so I'll go to the next slide, which is Nick. Nick is obviously a young guy. If we're going to be talking to some of these young constituents, doesn't hurt to have somebody who comes from that same demographic. Great enthusiasm, learning a lot as he goes. Again, you have the information in your package. So with that was not 4 or 5 minutes. Please excuse me, but there is so much potential here. And I believe that you'll be the judge of it, but I think that we're off to a good start. So how about, are there maybe 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll go to the next part in the...
Just to be clear, are they going to be, I know we shuffled some offices around in the county board office. Is that where they're located?
Yes, they are.
They'll be pretty much under the auspices of the county board, serving in the county board office.
Yes, and under my direct supervision.
Thank you.
Good. Ms. Wodnicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wondered if we're going to expand this outreach to include townships, cities, and small villages in Kane County.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts or questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you for your attention and attentiveness on that. Thank you, Roger. We don't have any speakers on agenda items, so we'll go straight to the consent agenda. Is there anyone who would like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remove item 13240.
Okay. Okay, any others? Ms. Taylor?
I'd like to remove 13246.
Okay. Ms. Barrero, did you have your hand up? That was it? Okay. Any others? Okay, if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 13240 and 13246. Moved by Mr. Vasquez, second by Ms. Sterrett. Any discussion, comment? Okay, if not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Guerrero.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Ford.
Yes.
Fraz.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazari.
Yes.
Lash. Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock. Yes. Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Mr. Smith on 13240.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I'd like to make a motion to pass
13240.
13240.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Kenyon. Discussion, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I brought this off the consent agenda is this is the first proposed resolution of our newly formed agricultural committee, which I am chairman. And I'm honored to say that we have had an awful lot of help and assistance with agricultural organizations throughout the county, most successfully with the Kane County Farm Bureau. And the director of the Kane County Farm Bureau is here today, Mr. Steve Arnold. Steve, if you would stand up. Thank you very much for coming. I think this is just the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship between the Kane County Board and the agricultural community, and I'm proud to bring this resolution forward.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other thoughts, comments? By the way, I would appreciate, and it's a fascinating example. It's been work that's been very well done. I did have some concerns early on that competing with existing private sector farm operations, but when it was like the difference between patience in explaining to folks who like me who don't have as thorough understanding as you and Mr. Kenyon do, but the difference between patience and punishment. Like when there is a question or an objection. The discovery during, I think it was the executive committee when you brought it forward, was if we emphasize demand of farm products with any grants that we find rather than the supply, a limited supply, but emphasizing growing demand. I hope that we can emphasize, continue that program in that direction. So thank you very much for hanging in there. So with that, let's see. The motion's been made, seconded. Do we need a roll call? Okay, well, the clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Guerrero.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Ford.
Yes.
Fraz.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazari.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes. Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
With pleasure, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that was it.
Vasquez.
Yes.
And Ms. Winecki.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. Next on the agenda is number 13246. I know that Ms. Taylor and Ms. Barrero have, these are very important. This is a very important priority. So Ms. Taylor?
Do we want to do the motion?
So you've made a motion. Ms. Barrero, second. Discussion. Ms. Taylor.
I would like to say that this is probably one of the opportunities that Kane County has taken to be extremely proactive in this process. I 110% support this. Everyone knows somebody that's in the foreclosure issues, either just starting or coming out at the tail end. And I am thrilled that Kane County's taken a lead on this. And I thank Chief Judge Braca on that one. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, and welcome, Chief Judge Braca. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for all your work on this. Ms. Barrero, did you want to add anything?
I do. This is something that we've needed for a while, and I think it's phenomenal. And going forward, I think it's going to be really useful in helping stabilize our tax base in Kane County. So thank you again, Chief Judge, and I'm all for it.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Ms. Wojnicki.
Just briefly, I would also like to thank our Chief Judge, Judy Braca, for taking the lead and having the vision to help the residents of Kane County that are struggling. In 2012, there were 4,200 foreclosures in Kane County. So this program is extremely important to our county. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wojnicki. Any other thoughts? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Ellen. Auger.
Yes.
Barrero.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Davis. Yes. Donahue. Ford.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Heyman. Yes. O'Shea.
Yes.
Kenyon. Yes. Kazari.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock. Yes. Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva. Yes. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winicky.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda is Riverboat Grant Subcommittee. It's on your agenda. We should have number 13255. So it'd be, I believe, resolution 13255. I'd like to turn it over to the chairman of the Riverboat Grant Subcommittee, Mr. Hoshite. Would you like to make a motion, I guess, and then I'll ask.
Chairman, I would move that we approve 13-255.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Hoshite, seconded by Ms. Lesh. Mr. Hoshite.
Mr. Chairman, this comes to us with a recommendation of the Riverboat Committee and a close but positive vote at Executive Committee. These are the grant requests for the internal projects. Historically, the committee approved these later in the year or in the spring, but the challenge that we were faced with was that these grants support a number of projects or a number of programs internally that require the expenditure of funds beginning in December. So the committee decided this year to change the program to evaluate the internal grants earlier, and we've completed that process, and this resolution is a result of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hoshite. Any other thoughts, questions? Mr. Donahue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted against this in Executive Committee because, well, for a couple of reasons, but the amount that's proposed for approval here today for the internal grants is approximately $4.4 million, while the projected revenues for fiscal year 2014 from the riverboat are $3.9 million. We also have had historically a commitment to fund an additional $1 million in external grants, and that process will occur next spring. So if you assume that we're going to maintain the commitment for the external grants plus approve of these internal grants today, that's a total of $5.4 million in expenses of riverboat funds. Again, with only 3.9 projected for revenue. Now, the response I had to this is that, well, we have a large fund balance in the riverboat fund, and we'll just fund the difference with that. But what I don't see here today is a commitment to do that. That's a policy decision in and of itself. And without that policy decision being made at this time, we're essentially contemplating approving grants that exceed the amount of revenues that we are anticipating. Now, we've been talking for years about the fact that riverboat revenues are decreasing. I think that trend is widely anticipated to continue. And we've also been talking for a long time about weaning ourselves off of the riverboat funds, knowing full well that they're going to continue to decline. So I think the message here, where we're contemplating, grants that greatly exceed the anticipated revenues without a corresponding commitment or policy decision today to dip into the fund balance to cover that, is contrary to where I think we need to be going, which is really looking at starting to wean ourselves off of this program. I do think it's appropriate to dip into the fund balance to fund this, and that's why it's there, but without that as being part of this package, that aspect of it hasn't been approved. And the third and final point is I really feel that the crux of the benefit of this program is in the external grants. And I'd like to see us, at a minimum, maintain the commitment of $1 million. And I'd actually like to see more focus on external grants in the future. At executive, the question was, well, okay, Mr. Donahue, you tell me on this list where we need to start cutting. And I'm not going to do it here at a public meeting and start picking on individual people, because people get sensitive to that. But generally speaking, I think that we've got a lot of monies in here on this list that are funding operations and salaries and not necessarily capital projects, which from my participation in the Riverboat program, that's really been the emphasis, is that these would be more toward capital projects that result in educational, environmental, or economic development benefits. So for those reasons, I plan to vote no today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Ms. Allen?
I really appreciate the suggestion that we need to form some policies. Mr. Hoshite, when he first called the committee together and I was first sitting on it, was saying that's one of the things that we are somewhat lacking here, is how do we go forward to move this money where it will do the most good. And I agree, we're internalizing a lot of it. So I would suggest that maybe a committee of the whole discussion to try and put some policy choices together, that might be a good plan for us. Some of the things that are on this list are things that are included in the original resolutions. So those salaries have been written in, and I don't know if we can change that, but we might want to take a hard look at those as well. I think what I appreciate about what's here is that everything that I see here is for the good of the county as a whole. I don't have any problem moving these items forward. But to have that policy discussion, I'm for that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Mr. Vasquez?
Chairman, at executive, I've made a comment about making sure that our staff, our county departments and elected start looking at not funding operational things with riverboat grants. This is not the first year we dip into the fund. We did that last year. And we're going to continue to do this until we deplete the fund. So eventually, what are we going to do? We're going to have to cut serious programs or look at other funding sources. I say we start today. I say we take the money being requested by the chairman to fund the temporary positions out of the equation as a start. And, those are operation type things. We should fund them directly through the budget. I think it's a wrong policy to continue to promote. So that's what I would make a motion, that we remove at least the chairman's part of it for the two staffers on this grant request, resolution.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vasquez, you're making a motion. Could you clarify that motion, please?
Motion that we remove your request of $81,000 for the staffers that you're looking to fund for Riverboat Grant as a start to show leadership from the county board for the rest of the group.
The motion's been made by Mr. Vasquez. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
A second by Mr. Davist. So motion's been made and seconded on removing the $81,000 for the Kane County Connected from the Riverboat Grant. Any discussion? Ms. Sterrett?
Was that the actual amount, or was it supposed to be half of that?
No, it was, when it was first proposed, it was for two positions, budgeting forward at 160, and it was cut in half, and our intention is to go and find that, the other half, with some type of outside non-taxpayer grant money. So it has been cut in half to the 81,000.
The group that was talked about up here, correct?
Yes.
That's doing such a good job. Okay.
Yes. Mr. Fraz?
I guess a couple thoughts. The big picture thought, I do agree with Mike that, we do need to start looking at, I don't think the riverboat grants are going to just go away, but they're certainly slowly going down. But at the same time, we're slowly climbing out of this recession. If you're in construction like I am, it's a depression. So I think this is the wrong time to just flatly cut all these out. We've used the internal grants for years. And that's one reason why we've been able to keep our county's finances strong and have our bond rating improve in a time when the economy was going downhill. As far as the discussion at hand, I know some of you aren't here, but I'd like everybody to think back to the county board office a year ago. We had Barb Garza up there working full-time in a very important position, a very busy office. We had Maureen Anderson helping out with special events. We had Heidi, the chairman's secretary, helping out with special events. And unfortunately, the way the last administration left office, that office was gutted. That office was closed 6 weeks prior to the new administration taking office. And I'm amazed, actually, we've gone this long without asking for a little help up there. I like the term ambassador in the PowerPoint presentation. The chairman doesn't have time to go to the hundreds of events that happen throughout the county, and he would like to. And I like the thought that we can send these people to these events. I like the fact that these people are going to help us improve our social media access, and I am in complete support of this. $81,000 in a budget of almost $250 million. To me, it's a no-brainer. I support fresh approaches and fresh ideas to serve our constituents and the taxpayers in Kane County and to improve our customer service.
Thank you, Mr. Frost.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Donahue brings up a very good issue here. Since I've been on the board, we have chosen to take, I think it started with about 70% of riverboat funding for internal projects. And we're now moving, and last year we moved to, with this representation, it's 100%, actually exceeding 100% of riverboat funding for internal projects. And that's the wrong direction. I mean, that's just simply the wrong direction. This resolution that Mr. Vasquez puts forward establishes a leadership position of the county board that we recognize this is the wrong direction, and we're going to move to change it. Now, that's the way I see the vote. I don't see it as a vote for or against what is being recommended here, because quite frankly, I think it's a good idea. I mean, so I'm not opposed to what's happening here. I'm simply opposed to where the money's coming from. And I think Drew brings up a very good point, that there's a $250 million budget here. And that's a lot of room to find $81,000. And so I don't see why we need to take it out of the riverboat fund. And I absolutely, totally agree with Mr. Donahue that we need to change the direction. And because I've been involved with the community grant program with the individuals who are submitting those applications. And it is a strong motivator for positive behavior in the community. And the more we can generate that, the better off we're going to be. So from that vantage point, I'm going to agree with Mr. Vasquez to vote that we remove the $81,000 from this. And quite frankly, I'd add to it. I'd add a couple others to it, but I won't take that on right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And just to clarify, the motion is to take just the Kane County Connected out of the riverboat internal grant. Other thoughts? Ms. Sterrett?
I guess I'm wondering from Mr. Vasquez, why would we take just the one out? Because it sounds as if you're just signaling, or sorry, what I'm trying to say is as if you're just trying to only do something against the chairman. And I don't mean that as a person or not, but I'm just asking because it just seems as if that's the only one that's being asked.
Respond, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vasquez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I just feel that, we've talked about this for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years since it's been on board. As, we need to start looking at winging ourselves off, and I think we have the control at the, board's office to do that. We can definitely look at other areas as well. I would welcome that conversation as well. And just to clarify, Drew, I'm not against the positions. As a matter of fact, I voted in favor of the 2 positions we added. I think the chairman with the county this size needs the support and the help. I've said that all along in my campaigning and, ever since I've been on the board. I support them. I just don't think we had to fund it from riverboat grants. I think we had to fund them directly through the budget, find a way to do it. And, yeah, it's $200 and some million budget, but really the levy is only $79 million, okay? So we use numbers. What we levy from our taxpayers directly for county services is only $79 million. It's not $250,000.
Okay. Let's see. Actually, just to clarify that point, it is, as Mr. Frost says, 6/100ths of 1% of the entire $250 million budget. Now, if we were to use the amount that's levied, and if we use your number, but it's not an accurate number, you're saying that it's $79 to $80 million. It's actually closer to 54 to 56 million. But if we were to use your number, so it's 3 times that. So it's 18/100ths of 1% is what this issue represents. As far as innovation, I would suggest, and I know that Mr. Hoscheidt's going to come forward and address some of the concerns, before I go back to that issue, I'm going to ask if there are any other thoughts, and then we'll wrap up with Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In dealing with riverboat funds, I do agree with the fact that we should not be using them for personnel reasons. I've seen this before, although, like everyone says, it's been going on for a while. But actually, Debbie Allen has said something that really makes sense to me today, and that is what the positions are standing for. It's not something, it's a county-wide spot that really represents the entire county. And that is a lot of ways that we have used the funds to support the county as a whole. And that's given me a real strong thought today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. Smith, I think this first.
If we can find any source to reduce the tax burden on the taxpayers, whether it be the riverboat fund or anything else, I think that should be our primary concern. I don't know how many of you people want to talk to your constituents, but I do all the time. And I hear more negative feedback about what the county does than positive feedback. We have a program here that may turn those numbers around. So I'm really in favor of this program.
Thank you. Any other first comments? Ms. Slesh and then Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually agree with a lot of what people are saying with policies and using the money and things like that. I think what a lot of people are missing here is that this is for the good of the county. That's why I keep hearing from all the board members. It's for the good of the county. And in that aspect, I see a lot of individualism in a sense of out for themselves, doing for me, doing for me. And I think it's time that we as board members come together, support the board and each other, not just because I'm in the South District, I should be helping and supporting up in the North District and things like that, and kind of become more of a unity and in that aspect, support our chairman in this aspect as well for this. I think with the internal and external grants, we have that ability to sit there and say to each department or each organization that is vying for some of the money to give us a follow-up, give us a report update on what the money is being utilized, how did it go, what's left over, what did you use in another area of your organization, so on and so forth. Give us repeated updates, whether it's quarterly, monthly, weekly, whatever. So in that aspect, I would ask everyone to think about coming together as a board and supporting each other in this whole thing.
Thank you, Ms. Slesh. Mr. Davis?
I just, in all of the discussion, I have not heard any board member speak against the concept, including myself. This has tremendous potential. The use of website and social media to deliver a message and connect people, great potential. And no one here has suggested that it shouldn't be pursued. To Ms. Sterritt's comment, it's the only item on here that falls directly under county board. And as a policy issue and as an opportunity to lead by example and follow some of what Mr. Hochheit has said, Mr. Donahue said, Mr. Lewis has said, not spending what we consider capital funds on operational expense. Yes, there's precedent for it, there's other examples of it, but this one falls directly under our purview, and we have an opportunity to still be supportive of the program. By asking it to come out of riverboat funds, nobody's saying, you know, send these people home, have them stop doing their work. It's simply leaving it as it was originally presented and funded. And I think with the savings that had been indicated from lobbyists and consultants and a desire to take ownership of this and hopefully have it fulfill that potential, we take it back in our county board budget where it started. That's the only move here.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So if it's taken out of the riverboat funds, someone else is going to have to pay it. And following Mr. Smith's comment, so would you rather have the property taxpayers pay for this rather than the riverboat gambling money?
Doing it now.
I mean, the money is going to come from, if what you're saying is accurate, which I have to take it at face value, that, you know, great program, we got to find money for it to come from someplace. Well, as Mr. Vasquez points out, you know, we have our levy, and again, you say to yourself, wait until you see how hard the question is going to be around the budget of making that balance. It seems that unless you can identify a better place for funds to come, they'll be then spent out of the property taxpayer levy. So is that your preference?
I'm simply following the lead that you gave us, Mr. Chairman. You presented this to us, that there were savings from lobbyists being removed that would more than cover it. I believe they're already being paid to do the job. I would submit to you that we should allow that to continue.
Yes, and that was the first consulting agreement. So, and that is being followed up. Mr. Kozarek?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm looking at this a different way. I still see this as a startup program. It has funding through November. After November, all we're doing at this point is giving it a funding mechanism to move forward for another year for that trial period to determine whether or not we want to make this an ongoing operational cost. So at this point, I don't really see this as an operational cost because it's still in that trial period of that grant, or I'm sorry, of the initial funding. We're moving it forward one more year to see if it's something we want to pursue further. We can go forward at that point.
But we need to do that in the future. With regard to the funding of policies, one problem we've all noticed in all our committees is throughout this year, departments have come to us and asked us for money. The budget was set before, but people keep coming and say, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. I don't want to see that happen again, and I think we all agree with this. I want a transparent funding mechanism for things so we know that we put everything out there so in April everyone's not going to come to us and say I need this, I need this. We're not talking about emergencies, believe me, you know, there are contingencies for that, but if we set the funding, we can decide as a board if this project isn't going to continue, but we need to fund it so that we're not looking 6 months from now and having to come up with money for it. This is a way of doing it. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Smith says. We have to look at the taxpayers here. We have this funding source through the riverboat to pay for this. Why should we go to taxpayers and say, well, we're going to ask you for more? In my district, that's not going to fly. I'm not going to go to my taxpayers, my residents, and say, well, guess what? We're coming and asking you for more money when you can barely afford to live in your house at this point. So we have this source. We need to pay for it. I think this is the way to do it. But that said, before we do this again next year, we need to have this serious policy discussion about how we're going to use this money. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pollack. Before we go to any people who would like to make a second comment, let's wrap up on first comments. And Ms. Castro, I believe that you have one.
I think my counterpart, Mr. Kazart, brought up a good point. And I know, John, you had said that there was approximately $10 million in the fund balance. Is that correct? Maybe this is an opportunity to have that discussion, Mr. Chairman, and then still revisit that since we do have a little time before that contract expires for this particular topic that we're talking about. So I guess why would it be detrimental not to not pass it now and wait till maybe October to bring this up? That'll give the board ample time to go through the budgeting process, and then we can bring it forward. Is there anything prohibiting us to pull out of that fund? I know John is looking at making awards a little different. So I guess that's a question to pose. Since it seems like there's some hesitation between some of the board members that why do we have to do this now, maybe once we look at the budget and the budget's so tight that we can't do it, okay, then it makes sense. Sometimes you have to see the numbers and where they fall before a decision can be made. Maybe that's an avenue we can explore.
I think it's probably obvious that I'm opposed to the motion in the second, naturally. To answer your question specifically, this has gone through the standing committee, all of the natural steps that we take of members of this board as they do their detail work. So this has gone through the standing committee. All the processes with the authorized people have gone through and approved it, and it comes here for our approval today, or your approval today. And so it's gone through the process already. And I would like to, again emphasize that this is 6/100ths of 1% that is being talked about being removed from the funding that has been agreed through the different committees. So,
And that, Mr. Chairman, I was just thinking of something that might compromise everybody and still get to a resolution of some sort.
I understand. Now, let's see. First comments, Ms. Taylor.
Aside from at the executive meeting, I voted no on this as well. One of my issues was the Fit for Kids, the $100,000 that was going into Fit for Kids. Looking at the documents, internal versus external was where my thought process was. It was submitted from external, but yet it was on the internal list. I just want to let everybody know I've talked to Mr. Holscheid on this. I've also talked to the director of the health department as well, with the hopes of more or less pulling that more in-house and letting the health department be responsible for the actions on that. So I have to tell you, I'm happy with it now. So just letting you know.
Thank you. Any other first comments? If not, second comments, Ms. Starrett? And then
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
First of all, I think it'll be interesting once our chairman of our board of the Riverboat Grants actually is able to speak and tell us about that. So I'm looking forward to that. The second thing is I do appreciate my committee members, Ms. Lesch's comment in the fact that yes, it would be great if we could all work together. I think it would be great. The other thing is actually what another one of our members said, that I believe it was Mr. Kozierek said that, and in fact, this was something that I mentioned. When we talked about this very issue, the thing in the actual committee, and Mr. Davis was there, and so was Ms. Taylor, so that was great to have them there. At that point, I said we needed to have, for this particular thing, we needed to have a job description, we needed to have then what I call metrics or measurements, so that both of those needed to be done. Those have both been addressed, that they are going to be within, a certain period of time, that we will have both of those. The second thing is, my last comment was, when we were doing this, I said, now, I see that this is going to be a positive, that it is going to work. Now, if it does not, which we hope it doesn't, because for the county's sake, we hope it goes well. But if it doesn't and they don't hit the metrics, then are we just going to fund this, or is the county board going to have a chance at that point to make the decision whether or not we're going to spend the $81,000 for next year? And at that point, Chairman Holscheid said to me, and so did Chairman Laws, and they did mention at that point that no, we would not go forward with it, that at that point we would have another vote on it as well. So for me, that took care of it because it was in writing, it was in our committee. Since then, we've gone on to other committees, and no one mentioned anything at our first meeting, nor, there were a couple things that were mentioned, which I agree with. I think a lot of the comments here are very good that are being made, that maybe I don't agree with, but I think they're very good points to be made. We had finance, and we also, I know we had an executive as well. So I guess I'm just wondering why now it's such an issue, why we haven't taken care of this before.
Okay, I would like to address that too. And both Cheryl and Nick, This is a very interesting process. I know what it's like to run a business with 350 employees and 450 offices and 22,000 clients. But you don't have to worry about having this kind of discussion, about the future careers, if that's, about a project. We are trying to do this idea that you make it transparent. I believe that Cheryl and Nick do know that if there's a failure to define or a failure to hit the metrics, which are approximately 1,000 likes or the list on the emails, I'm sorry, don't you know that we won't have to come back here for a vote on that? I personally will discontinue this. So has that been made clear to Cheryl and Nick? And it is a challenge, a special challenge, to be able to motivate people to come to work each day when they think, my goodness, is our commitment to this at that level. I had a question about a month ago where, maybe it was about 3 weeks ago, Cheryl came in and there was a fellow who wanted to get very involved in leading one of the constituencies up at the north end of the county. And he says, well, now is this something we're just going to start and it's just going to die? Because even a volunteer asked the question, how committed are we to innovation? And I said, Cheryl, as long as we hit those marks, there will be support on the board, and I believe that. So I'm going to ask Mr. Donahue, and then we'll wrap it up. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Hoshite for the final word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Donahue.
The last couple of minutes of this conversation has gone completely off the rails from where I intended it to go. What I see sitting in this room are 24 elected people that support your community outreach coordinators. I have not heard one person say that they don't support the program.
I have. We're talking about
the people.
We're talking about eliminating, the only thing we're eliminating from the external grant, Mike.
That, please.
Okay.
Cheryl and Nick are delightful people. I congratulate you on your hire. I congratulate you on the success of the program so far, and I believe that everybody in this room wants to see that program succeed. This conversation, which started out as a broad policy discussion about riverboat grant funding, has now descended down to a single line item on this sheet. When I made my comments, I made general comments about the policy and said I didn't want to pick on any particular line item, knowing full well that that would denigrate the conversation the way I believe it has gone the last few minutes. What we're talking about, unfortunately, right now is how to fund $81,000, for Pete's sake. If we don't do it here, should the taxpayers pay for it? Well, maybe they should. I mean, this whole program is supposed to benefit the taxpayers and create jobs and have dividends. Why not have the taxpayers pay for it? I don't know. I'm just saying that we're talking about $81,000 out of $4.4 million, out of $250 million, however you want to look at it. I'm trying to talk about the policy issue of contemplating spending $5.4 million in riverboat monies when we have 3.9 coming in, without a corresponding commitment to allocate $1.5 million from the fund balance to cover it. It's a pretty simple argument here. Yes, and let me speak to that. I need to explain my vote, because now I'm forced to vote on this because there's a motion and a second. I could vote present, I suppose, and maybe I will. But the point is, if I have to vote on this, now is this motion consistent with my broad policy concern, or am I picking on you, Mr. Chairman? Which one is it?
You'll be the judge. You'll be the judge of that with your vote.
That the motion supports my bigger policy concern, and because of that I will support it. I am not picking on you, Mr. Chairman. I am not picking on Cheryl and Nick. I love the program. I just don't think it ought to be funded with riverboat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Mr. Hoshite?
I know that this is a long debate over an issue, and my comments relate to Mr. Donahue's comments and not to the motion to amend, because I think the motion to amend, we can vote and get over that issue and then talk about the big picture.
Okay, may I then suggest that as you address that, and it's the larger motion, I think that maybe we should keep our thoughts on what the motion and the second. So to put it in order, if you don't mind, I'd like to call the question, have the clerk call the roll on the motion and the second, and then I'm going to come back to Mr. Hoshite to outline the larger motion, which is where I think that Mr. Donahue had started.
That's fine.
So, with that, the motion is to strike $81,000 from the external grants. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a clerk's clarification in your ordinance. Did you mean to amend the resolution which has a dollar amount in the fourth whereas to change it from $4,384,404 to $4,303 and $4,303,404? Did you mean to amend that also?
If that's the math, yes.
That's the resolution that you moved to amend.
Right.
So I want to make sure that I had it right.
Right now, we're only voting on the request to remove that one portion. We're not voting on the entire package.
Right. I was trying to get what
correct?
the motion would read, and you weren't clear in your amendment. Okay. With that, Auger? No, Allen?
No.
Auger?
Yes.
Guerrero?
No.
Castro?
No.
Davis?
Yes.
Donahue?
Yes.
Ford?
No.
Braz?
No.
Gilliam?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
No.
Holshite? No. Kenyon?
Yes.
Kozerick?
No.
Lash?
No.
Lewis?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Pollock? No. Jeffro?
No.
Silva?
No.
Smith? No. Sterrett?
No.
Taylor?
No.
Vasquez?
Yes.
Winicki?
No.
The motion fails. We'll go now to the discussion of the motion that was made by Mr. Donahue, and who had the second on that? Okay. No, the motion was to pass the external grants. Motion was made by Mr. Hoshite, and who was the second?
Ms. Lesh.
Was Ms. Lesh. Okay. Back to the larger issue, Mr. Hoshite.
Mr. Chairman, I want to just look at the big picture just put this in perspective. This Riverboat Grant Program, we've had so much angst over the last couple of meetings about it. It's a wonderful program. We've had the privilege of investing tens of millions of dollars from this program over the years in projects both internally and externally that benefit the county and its residents. And if you look at the original agreement contemplated that we would fund internal programs of a significant magnitude. And what we did once the grant agreement was executed, we formed those programs and have funded those over the years. I do agree with Mr. Donahue, because of the confusion that's here, that we should put this as an issue on a committee of the whole agenda so that we can get clarification. But, you know, I've served as chairman of this Riverboat Committee for a number of years, and I want to make it clear, if you review the minutes, and I know we all have meetings, probably more meetings than we anticipated attending, but if you review the minutes of the meetings, I think they'll make it clear that what Mr. Donahue is suggesting was discussed. But because that committee is so small in size, it's appropriate to get larger buy-in and have this discussed as a committee of the whole. One of the concerns I have is that when you discuss this, you know, we have to understand the facts. In Illinois right now, we've got problems with deficit spending, and I want to make it clear, I'm about as fiscally conservative as anyone on this board. When we talk about providing grants of $5.4 million this year with only $3.9 million in funds coming in, that technically could be argued to be deficit spending, but you have to look at it in terms of the context of the grant agreement and its place. I mean, one could argue that we're not carrying out our goal here, or our mission, because we should be giving more grants because we have a fund balance that exceeds that. We're not setting a budget based on available or current funding. We have an obligation as a fiduciary to hand out these grants from the funds that we've received. And we have a fund balance that far exceeds our annual revenue. And what we've tried to do at the committee is develop a reasonable process of spending down that fund balance or providing the grants, because that's our charge as the fiduciaries. Now, Looking at the big picture from Mr. Donahue's perspective, this year we have roughly $4.1 million in external grants. We have a commitment as a committee, and as an individual, I'm committed to the $1 million external program. And by the way, that's not going away unless this board decides to change its course, okay? I've been the chairman of this committee for a number of years, and even in the prior administration, there was pressure to reduce that external grant program, and I, with the support of the committee members, kept that program in place at $1 million, and the commitment of the committee is to continue with that program. But this year, if we say that that external program is $5.4 million, and we have $3.9 million in revenue, there's about a $1.5 million gap there. And if we continue that program into the future, we could fund that for probably 4 or 5 years, given our current fund balance, and then we'd be at a crossroads. But if you look at the external grants that we are approving today, there are 2 major discretionary grants in there that will go away, or could go away. One is farmland preservation. That's a $600,000 component that probably, depending on available federal funding, may go away in the future. So that's one that could be removed if the funds aren't available. And the other major component of there, roughly $900,000 a year, is a debt service payment on the JJC bonds. Those are scheduled to go away in 2016. So if we took just those 2 components out, we would be able to continue in perpetuity, if the revenue source stayed where it's at, to continue to fund this program. So we're not spending this into the negative. Now, between now and then, we've got some tough choices to make. I mean, and I think it's appropriate as committee of the whole, we should look through all the internal programs that we fund and have the state's attorney, who is really the bulk of those internal programs, come and present to us what the consequence of not funding those programs would be. And then we can make an educated policy decision. But as far as this year is concerned, I want to make it clear that what this committee did was consider the issues that Mr. Donahue discussed at length. We came forward with this proposal, taking those concerns into consideration, with the commitment this spring to have a $1 million external grant program and continue that program indefinitely into the future. I think the flaw was that we probably didn't bring this to a larger committee to discuss it, but I'm confident we can address his concerns. And I would also state that if we approve this as presented, we will have a very solvent riverboat fund for several years into the future, and we can discuss the policy concerns that have been raised here today over time and still be able to fund the internal programs and the external grants. So I'm voting for this like I did at committee and exec for those reasons.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Donahue. It's a pretty good summary. Is it all right if we go ahead and vote on the issue? Okay. With that, the motion's been made and seconded. Clerk will take the roll.
Allen.
Aye.
Auger.
Yes.
Barrow.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Ford.
Yes.
Frauds.
Yes.
Gilliam.
Yes.
Heyman, excuse me.
Yes.
Hochheit.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Koceric.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
No.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. And we will follow up. We will follow up with the committee of the whole, and I'll take direction from the committee, the Riverboat Standing Committee, so that we talk about some of the concerns, valid concerns raised today. Thank you very much for the discussion on those items. Okay, we don't have a need today for executive session, but we do have several speakers on non-agenda items. I'd first like to ask Francine Sella from the League of Women Voters, Elgin area, to come forward to speak regarding the June 2013 report of the Kane County Mental Health Advisory Committee. Ms. Sella, will 3 to 4 minutes be okay?
I understand that's what I have, so
okay. All right.
I'll do it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I am from the League of Women Voters of the Elgin area, and we do represent more than just Elgin. It's actually multiple cities within Kane County that we represent. And we have a longstanding mental health committee that is very active in assessing the availability and appropriateness of care that's available to people with mental health services. So we were very interested in the recommendations made by the Mental Health Advisory Committee that were just released. Now, we're aware that the report, or that the committee was configured in response to a public act, and that was a requirement, and now you have the report, and I guess our concern is what are the next steps. We don't want this just to become a compliance activity where you kind of follow the rules and put the committee together. We would like some feedback on what your plans are, what your time frame is for either implementing it or not. And I know I'm not getting that response today, but I want to throw that out there, that is something that we're concerned about and we're kind of waiting for a response on. So perhaps you could invite us back to a meeting when you have it on your agenda sometime in the near future. Okay. I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody that people with serious mental illness are not only underserved, but in many cases are unserved. And so this is really a major issue that we are concerned about and looking for you to hopefully help with. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sella. And if I'm not mistaken, the issue is being addressed through the Director of Public Health, Barb Jeffers, along with the committee, Public Health Committee that's chaired by Dr. Monica Silva. So thank you, Ms. Sella.
Mr. Chairman, would you indulge me with one question if it's possible, or that's inappropriate?
Would it be okay? We have a couple more speakers to go, and then be happy to put those thoughts into the proper forum for working through this policy is in the Public Health Committee. So,
Okay, I'm sorry, just for the record, it's Dr. Sella. Okay.
I'm very
All right.
sorry, Francine.
That's fine. Okay,
Very
thank you.
sorry, Dr. Sella. Thank you very much. Sue Klinghamer, would you come forward of St. Charles regarding the appointment process to transportation boards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here as a member of the Citizens Advisory Board of Metra. It's really not all the transportation boards I want to address. It's specifically the Metro Board.
Yes. May I ask, is the 3 to 4 minute standard? It's usually 3 minutes,
Yeah,
but
no,
will
that's
3 to 4
fine.
minutes be okay?
I just really
Thank
am
you.
here to encourage you with your other board chairman and the City of Chicago to kind of change the appointment process. I know that's something that's coming up. My thought is I would like to explain to you the former chairman and the last board when the Metro Board appointment came up. And I know it's very trendy to be transparent and have transparency, but I want to say that I thought that process was, although maybe it was transparent, it wasn't the way it should be done. In transparency, I think there was a committee that was appointed, the former chairman, instead of making the appointment herself, which I think, Chairman, the appointments really are the chairman's appointment, right?
Yes, with the ratification of the board.
Right.
But this is a time for us to listen to your presentation to the board. I think the word that you used is that the process to appoint board members is a sham. That was the quotation.
Right, right.
But this is your time, not our time for response.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry. I felt like at the time, I think there were maybe 10 or 12 people who applied, and then that was put before a board of 4 representatives from the county board. But my thought was that the choice had already been made, and so, we all went in there, I think, with the, to be interviewed. And and again, this isn't sour grapes on my part, but I felt like my transportation background and expertise had kind of, been overlooked. And I thought at that time that the board was more interested in if somebody was going to take pay, if somebody was going to take the retirement, and if somebody was going to take the benefits, rather than actually somebody who knew transportation. Now, as we found, this has been the case in many of the counties, and many of the appointments on the current Metro board is why it's all kind of blowing up. But at the time, I felt like they should have been looking at transportation expertise. And now I think the RTA board chairman for further appointments to any of the boards is going to have transportation expertise kind of as what's needed rather than all the other things. And that was all. I just thought that the process was not fair.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Klinkhammer. Next on the agenda is Joan Solms from Aurora regarding opposition to low-income housing being proposed on Jericho Road in Aurora.
Thank you.
Ms. Solms, is the 3 to 4 minutes okay?
I think I should be able to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
One of our local politicians in Aurora, in describing the projected resuscitation of Aurora, referred to it as Ravinia on the river. Well, I laughed at that because the success of Ravinia is based on old money and a continued inflow of it. I don't see this happening in Aurora. On July 11th, a roundtable discussion took place at Wabansie Community College. It was planned by the Aurora Housing Authority and conducted by the Urban Land Institute of Chicago. By the time the citizens were made aware of the plant, it was almost too late to stop the project. Panel discussions are programmed to see what objections there will be to the project and where it will come from. None of the moderators were from Aurora. They will not live here or spend their money here. If the project fails, they will still get paid. Every one of them represented a not-for-profit organization which depends on government funding. The project in question is the old Jericho Circle land off Jericho Road in Aurora. The discussion at the meeting was to throw out the idea of low-income housing being built on the vacant property. After years of dealing with the failed housing Jericho Circle project and the crime it brought in, it was finally torn down, thanks to Mr. Lawrence. While it was not my next-door neighbor, I own a house adjacent to the Gulfview Park and had to deal with some of the tenants of that project. My property was a favorite crossing route out of the park, a shortcut which they took even at night. On several occasions, the police had to be called by us. In speaking with neighbors and business people in the area, the consensus is never again. One businessman I spoke with, whose business goes back to the 60s, told me that the stores that were initially there had to close because of daily robberies. No one I spoke with wants low-income housing built there. It will do nothing to raise our property values or that of the surrounding property. The most popular vote was for selling the land, maybe to Aurora University, to build student housing there, not just to build a project that is doomed for failure in our neighborhood. A representative of a bank, not located in Aurora, sitting at my table offered a solution. He said Aurora has many low-priced houses on the market for sale. Concentrate on selling these houses. It will be less expensive in the long run. It would be scattered housing and not a burden on any one area. Low-income housing, he thought, would be about $100,000. The moderator said the purchaser would be earning around $30,000. In reality, on that income, one could hardly afford to own a house. And the one thing Aurora does not need is another housing bubble bursting. Why am I speaking to the county board? I want all of you to use your influence and voice to help us stop this project. If you agree with me or disagree with me, may I suggest you put it in your neighborhood or your town. The people running this project have no skin in the game, and low-income housing will not affect their neighborhood, but it will mine and my neighbors. I live in an unincorporated area of Aurora. We do not have enough sheriffs now to adequately police our area. This project will make our area more susceptible to an increase in crime again. Aurora spends quite a bit of money on advertising. Much good it will do us. if the best we have to offer is second-rate housing and failing schools? Will the new neighbors be friendly? After my letter appeared in the papers, they started to call me. They didn't leave their name or phone number. I got the silent treatment. If this is a foretaste of the low-income housing representatives, this doesn't work for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Solms. Okay, we don't have any other speakers on non-agenda items, so I would ask if there's a motion to adjourn until Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 at 9:45 a.m. Moved by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Sterrett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned until then. Thank you.